Dummy Switch Pod,
Yes,
the
sir.
world's greatest rugby podcast. How are you, Chris?
Kudos, I'm good. I'm good. How you, man?
You know how it is. We can be sad or we can look to the week ahead.
Yeah, you just gotta look ahead. I don't think it's this. I don't think there's much to be sad about. Okay, not a good result, but there's some positives.
I'm not too sure on the positives. I mean, guys have been capped, but we move. I would have liked. I mean, we saw Stick in the media saying some of these lighties were URC player of the tournament and this and this. So it would have been nice to get that wing to validate his point even more. But I
Yeah,
suppose lessons were learned.
yeah. I mean, yeah, lessons were learned definitely, but as you say, there's some of the guys were URC players of the tournament. But even in the URC, they had to go through some lows, to enjoy the highs. So I think it's just the reality that it's not always going to be smooth sailing, especially at test level, and test level it's 1 or 2% difference, in
Yes.
decision making, in execution, and that's why I say it's for me. It's not. There's positives out of it. Yes, there's negatives out of this last game. If you're talking second game, working back, but like they say, they've got their answers, and I believe that it can only put us in good stead as a reality check to say, maybe we're not as good as we think, and which is good because then we're forced to go and get better, and
My
that's
thing,
players and coaches.
yeah, coaching especially because the attack looked
Mm,
very flat. And I mean,
yeah,
they at the end of the day, they get a book and they get told what to do. My
yeah,
thing that I want to bring it back to is you did say that test level is that notch above. To me, the parallel is playoff basketball. During the regular season, it's a bit more looser, and then playoffs
mm,
things get tight. Those gaps that were there are no longer there. And I felt like that when I was watching that game, I was thinking the same thing. Those gaps for Holland that they were there during their
yes,
club games, it's tightened up
mm,
in test matches. That
yes,
uh it's almost you have less time on the ball, less time to think, less gaps. It's a higher
mm,
pressure situation. The same thing for like Esterhazen as well.
yeah.
It's nice to play in the Premiership and be the man every week, but okay, there was a donkey outside him, but alas.
Yeah, but quarters, even in you saying that, it goes back to those moments. It's just because as much as yes, the gaps they were not as quite there for Gelant. The thing is early on it was there when he got quickly away. It's just that
Yeah.
Reece Emmett has got jet shoes, man. And they couldn't really execute because if you look at that play, if you look at it from maybe in a URC game, on that outside, Galant is taking that all the way
Yeah.
to the try line, or at least maybe even straighten the line up a bit more so that Kirtley's got that space
Or even
outside.
release earlier. But the
Yeah,
thing for me with that was I still feel like we should have scored from that, even if
yes,
it creates a phase, we still should be scoring there.
yeah,
And that's the thing where it's also like it was so promising from the beginning because you're like, they look sharper.
yeah,
There's more of a cutting edge than the previous week.
yeah.
The previous week we're seeing flat cross
Mm.
kicks. We're seeing it wasn't dynamic. I don't know what. Okay, Elton granted, I think he played one game, and I don't even think it was a full game.
Yeah,
So second match of the year, you can't. I personally, I'm not going to be as harsh on him.
no.
The only thing is, obviously, this is an Elton Yankees Stan podcast. I am an Elton Yankees Stan, but my thing is, when do we stop making excuses for him? But at
Yeah,
the same time, he's always thrown into a bad situation.
true. I think valid on both sides. When do we stop making excuses? I think, when you're talking about him, the only thing that I could think of is, yes, I'm not going to hang him out to dry. He hasn't played a lot of rugby. He doesn't pick himself. But what you just want from him is just knock out the ABCs, We know
Yeah.
you can be flashy. Forget about that. Just ABCs. You know what I mean? Considering the situation, then everything else will take care of itself. And I think maybe in that aspect, he probably just wants to sort of assert himself a bit more, whereas maybe he should let the game come to him, you know, in that, and just let others play around him, you know. But at the same time, you know, on the other side of it, it's just, he is being put in a bad situation, and you have to question, because then it goes back to, I think we mentioned it during the URC season, that, you know, in South Africa, you know, you see a guy like Masuku is probably the informed fly-off, you know. Where else are we looking, you know,
I'd say Libbok as well.
Libbok, yes. Okay, yes. Libbok as well, you know, from a URC perspective, you know, let's not forget that. But, you know, but you know what I mean, right? Is that there's
Tinas is also better than Pollard, but that's another conversation for another
day. But
if we're gonna talk fly halves as well, let's talk about Pollard, who is no longer the starting fly half for his club, who has also forgotten his ABCs. I will also say that Pollard, his running game was better in this game than it was in previous games. But in previous games, he's been getting away with average performance after average performance in a Bok jersey for I don't know how many test caps. This game, he had the running game, but he didn't have the kicking game. He didn't have, and he was captain.
Yeah.
So what I want to see is, I want to see the same level of accountability. I want to see the same energy that you had for Elton Jantjies, and it's even worse because Pollard was the captain.
Yes, and considering, I mean, look at the margin that they lost by. He missed points. You know, he missed points as well off the boot. You know, if Pollard gets the points off the boot, even if Wales get that score, we still win by the 2 points, maybe 3. You know, so we can't forget that. You know, we can't overlook that. Not forget, but you can't overlook that, in the sense that. And we've spoken about that before. It happened with the British and Irish Lions series. We saw it in the Rugby Championship as well. You know, it's those margins, you know, that at the end of the day will win you a test match. At the end of the day, you can play the best game of rugby. You can control all the possession like they did. You can control all the territory, you know, and create most opportunities. But on the scoreboard, if you don't tick that box, you know, at the end of the day, then you didn't deliver.
Yeah, and guys like to talk. There's nice things about Damian Willems's salary. There's nice things about people have to say about Elton Jantjies, but at the end of the day, Pollard, we also need to bring out the stick for him, especially after the game. He's talking, the boys this, the boys that. It's you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but alas, if we're talking about that game, we've got guys that, unfortunately, you had Dweba misfiring a bit. I felt he also like Pollard, he had good moments in the game, but if we take it back to set piece,
ABC,
there were problems, but I can still give him more leeway because he's not a 50 test Bok.
Yeah, that's a valid one as well. You know, he isn't. You know, he isn't. And look, it's not like the Bok lineout has been the most accurate in recent times at the same time. So, you know, you can't really lambaste him there. My only issue is just, I think it boils down to execution. You know, a lot of it, when you look at it, if you saw even how Wales got back into that game, the second game, you know, execution at certain moments, you know, the just from the set piece point, you know, guys taking up their own responsibilities, their roles. You know, if you're a prop, that's where I saw Mchunu got exposed a bit. You know, first scrum he got a penalty, but the one that mattered, that mattered, a crucial one, you know, he got found out, and that is just a lack of patience from him, because he had the dominance, and in that moment, if you look at it backwards, if you watch it back, he had that dominance, and all he needed to do was just to keep on holding and push, even if he just held, instead of just moving his feet around. And then
it's because he was under pressure. He was, the thing with him is he has that impact play, but the questions have always been around his scrummaging.
We've mentioned it before. Hence,
I don't know if we're talking about the same one, but it was the one where he walked around.
Yeah,
he was.
One we walked around, and then it was line out.
Yes, I would say that he was doing too much there, and he was under pressure there. You're trying to milk a penalty, and he couldn't hang. That's when you start wheeling like that. I don't think he's looking for dominance there. I think he's looking to survive.
Okay, well, you're more experienced in that regard, so you're not. It's just I saw a different picture, but you'd know from experience playing in the front row, But again, it's exactly that. We questioned. I know I certainly had questions or surprised when he was called into the box setup ahead of a guy like Matanzima, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So but yeah, and he got found out those moments. Even if you're speaking. Like I say, there's positives there. It's just the execution. And I think as well, it's also, we saw the willingness for these guys, this group that they selected, they wanted to play more with the ball. I think it's just the dynamic, they weren't getting as much go forward as they used to. I think just the mix in the ball carriers or in the pack that they had, maybe that was a disadvantage, and it shows that, guys like Russ, yes, he had a good, decent outing, but still a long way to go to impose yourself in a test match,
Yeah, and I think one of the commentators had said as well, they were dropping 10 back for the kicks. So you're not getting your 8 with momentum running forward with the ball. Maybe that's also something to look into. Backline as well. Curtly Arnser, for me, main thing for me is that he just doesn't make mistakes. I felt he had a good game. He was solid, not too much fussy. Also, again, someone that there had been calls for him to play.
Look, if we're talking moment, he should have gone for the switch. I believe he froze on the wing there. That was a switch all day to bring the play back in. It just. I don't know. It just seemed like he just wasn't really in that game, and you can see his good touches. He has that class, but at that level, at test level, consistency, I think is what we've been called for, to say, can he consistently deliver? And at the moment, he's still a bit short,
And there's Spoon Kosi still has to come back. There's guys breathing down. South Africa, there's too many wings. I think that's what we've seen. There's too many wings. So you have to take that opportunity.
Especially wing.
Yeah, a guy that did take the opportunity, I think, was Hendrickse.
Yeah, he did.
If we're moving on to selection as well, he's been selected to start the next test. And I think that is a form selection. I don't think that's just playing around with things. I think they saw how he played. He looked very comfortable. He is that slow poison, but I think he was just fast enough. He was just fast enough this time.
No, that's true. That's true. Because I was worried about that. It's just his speed of the ball, but his speed of the ball was good. His speed of the ball was good. It's just the cleaners getting to the ball just tad bit slow at times. Which slowed him up. But I think, he had a very good game. And you saw, they couldn't take him off really up until the last moments. And I think it was really just about, they didn't even take him off because Williams came on. I think he came on the wing, so they weren't even going to take him off in that game. That's how good he was. And it's throwing a spanner in the works because now they've got a different dynamic in him. Faf now, he's gotta try fight back, which is good. But I would have wanted to see Grant Williams. I would have loved to see him in that game, especially with a bit more time. I think
if you think back to even that Ulster game for the Sharks, they couldn't, because if we're being honest, we had territory. Territory was good enough. We just didn't have that cutting edge. And the same thing, the Sharks were missing that cutting edge. Grant Williams comes on, he breaks the game, involved 2 tries. So I get why you're saying that.
You know, I would have loved to see him more time, you know, even on the wing, because he's good enough, you know. But yeah, man, it was also a strange game, you know, because the more you look, you have to give credit to Wales, and we must realize that Wales, I think if we've seen, you know, you watched what is the Chasing the Sun, the documentaries, whatever, is that Wales they play a similar game to what the Springboks play, you know. So in terms of kicking game and looking to hang physically, and they did that, because if you look, it was 66 minutes, it was 12-3, and then from there all of a sudden, you know, game just changed. And it was Springbok like, you know, they got their 3, then when they got the sniff, and then they took it. I was disappointed with the Maul defense from our side as well. You know, it just seems we're not firing really on all cylinders in the pack. And look, I'm not gonna. That's why I say it's not, for me. It's not really such a bad thing, because we're building, you know, into now this last game where you've got the stalwarts back, and then it's going to be Rugby Championship, where I think maybe we'll see a bit more, also some more of the younger guys or new guys coming in, you know, and hopefully we can see an evolution of just the game plan, where it's not just the kicking, where there is the ball in hand play, which our guys can actually play, you know. So we want to see more of that. Otherwise, it's going to be a very, very interesting lead up to the World Cup next year, but that's still long.
Yeah, if we just talking that game, Nyakani, nice for him to get a start. They've brought back the serious guys. Kolisi back at captain. Peter Steph playing 7. Visa at 8. Like we said, Hendrickson gets a nod at 9. Pollard, unfortunately, there. Some real centers playing again. Back to only other thing, Damian Willems at 15, which we saw in the first game. But Fav and Villy off the bench. Yeah, hopefully they'll give that spark.
Hopefully they'll give that spark. You know, I don't want to say this, but we look more dangerous when Villy seems to be operating at first receiver from the first game.
Yeah, we're poverty fly half nation right now. Right now, we're a poverty fly half nation. We need Tinas De Beer. We need Masuku. We need somebody, because it's just.
Yeah, man. Like, because look, credit to Villy Leroux, you know, because even in that first game when he came on, honestly, I was at Loftus that first game, you know, and watching a lot of stuff that you won't see on TV. You'll see how he was controlling everything. He was talking to the forwards, telling them. He was talking to the backs. He was commanding things as a 10 would, you know, and you could see how that play was developing, and you know, you just got the sense that, okay, like, this is a guy, he's in control now, you know.
You are saying, hey, can Fassi do this? He can't do this, so you guys must
know. So yeah, you have to give him credit for that. You know, he's experienced, and you know, obviously he wasn't just gonna, you know, relinquish his spot like that. You know, he's still gonna show that he wants it. You know, so credit to him. But I think, you know, Damian Willems as well, just having seeing him at that game, first game, and now I think he's primed. He's being primed to his role. I think going forward is going to be in the 15 jersey for the Boks, and obviously alternating at 12 and 10. You know, because I think the more confident he becomes, like he did at the Stormers, the easier it'll be for him to play his natural game anyway without the mistakes. You know, I definitely see that with him. You know, and yeah, it's exciting to see him there. You know, it'd be interesting to see him in the backline where, you know, with a guy like Kurtley Arendse, you know, probably in the rugby championship, maybe we'll see that where there'd be a bit more spark, you know, because I think we'd have to offer something different in the rugby championship if we're going to make that statement, which we should and must. It's prime time.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes this weekend. Big rugby this weekend, also New Zealand, Ireland. I almost lost my life savings on betting on that game. But anyway, any closing remarks, Chris?
Yeah, look, I think all the results from the past weekend, it's good for rugby as a whole, actually. You know, we want our teams to win and all of that, but we need close series, close contests so that the great game grows. But this weekend, the Boks can't slip up in Cape Town. You cannot. Sister Bettina must be played, actually, you know, so come on.
Throughout the whole 80, they must just play.
Yeah, because
the DJ in Bloemfontein was terrible, guys. Like, we must also, he needs to be under review. But thanks for watching, guys. That's Dummy Switch Pod.